Well, so the thing about yesterday was I decided that I would not do work. And instead,
Sure.
I stared at my computer for far too long, wondering if I should delete my Twitter account.
Are you happy with your level?
Yes, but not my Twitter account.
I bet you get some fun ads.
Oh, God. There was a guy who's like, I can't even imagine being as soft as this. I'm never giving you money again. And I was like, okay.
I felt good about like I actually wrote a recap, but there.
Yeah, well, you were like,
I'm sorry for
let's
lining
make
that
this
up for.
short. And I was
Well,
like,
because I really,
you have no idea.
I mean, I've set a certain precedent in short,
Yeah, there's been some short MGoBlog game recaps.
but I didn't want to go full one sentence.
Well, see, I think your work on the Ohio State game is a nice bookend to your work on the South Carolina game, because the Ohio State recap ends with better days are ahead. And then the South Carolina recap ends with, good Lord, they have to be better.
Yeah, like it did.
And I was like, that
wasn't even
nice,
intentional, but that was a tone shift.
That's a nice bookend to, oh my Lord.
Yeah. So we're gonna do it like Ricky, Rico,
Ricardo, Dick, Dickie, Tricky Dick.
That's business attorney and Star Wars expert Richard Hoeg of Hoeg Law. This isn't actually like an advertising segment. He just wrote like a viral internet post about The Last Jedi. And I was like, hey, you want to talk about this? Because I disagree with his take, mostly.
Also, we didn't want to talk about other things.
Right, and it's like, we need a segment. What are we going to talk about? Sports? Oh, gross. So here's Richard.
Richard, yeah, that's
Richard.
pretty normal.
Brian's command of our sponsors' names continues
Hey,
to be
gentlemen.
excellent.
Yeah, we saw a little seen movie, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I think all of us on this podcast have seen it now.
Yes.
Indeed.
A few people in the country saw it over the break.
So there are massive spoilers for a movie that if you haven't already seen, you're probably not ever going to see. So,
But yeah, I mean, spoiler alert in case you're one of those people
Spoiler
who gets
alert.
mad several weeks after the fact.
Yes, I think I wrote spoilers abound on that
yes.
very, very minorly viral article that I wrote on the Hoeg Law blog. Check it out at HOEGlaw.com.
He's big on Tumblr.
I am. I'm huge on Tumblr, which is a site I was not familiar with before this last weekend. So that was eye-opening.
It has a reputation for being mostly porn.
Well, there are certainly sites that have really taken some of the words that I said in that article and really felt them and are also right near various positions of anime cats that I was unfamiliar with. But bless their hearts, they liked what I had to say, and if they also like anime cats, who am I to argue?
I think that's
To each
rule
their own.
34.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm just looking at a piece of paper now. So we're going to talk about The Last Jedi.
Let's do it.
A movie that I thought had it was really kind of taken over for Brady Hoke at the quarterback position, I thought. Because I can't explain to you how much I loathe The Force Awakens for just being episode 4 again.
Yeah, a worse, more hollow version. I think that's fair.
And like it's like J.J. Abrams sat down and he's like, all right, this is Star Wars, but it's 2016. So what we're going to do is we're going to make like a girl and a black guy the heroes, and then Gamergate is going to be the enemy. And that was it.
That's Kylo is Gamergate in this?
Kylo is, I mean, he kind of looks like Gamergate. He's like the physical embodiment of Gamergate.
He's got a Columbine-ness to him, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that is on point.
That is
and brutal.
And I'm completely fine with like, mixing up and diversity it up. But you can't just do that and be like, and we're done.
And that's a movie.
That's a movie. We're just going to do episode 4 except diverse.
Here's a robot on a desert planet with some stuff people want to find, and here's a Death Star. No, it's a much bigger thing,
Right.
and we're going to blow it up in the end. But that was a crowd pleaser. I mean, at the end of Force Awakens, it made $900 million domestic. People enjoyed seeing it in December 2015.
Do I seem like a person who likes pleasing crowds?
No,
I just killed
I would never accuse you of that, Brian. I would never accuse you of that. But when we talk about The Last Jedi, when we move into talking about it and the tone that it strikes, I think it's important to note that its immediate predecessor, the movie in which, like, the actual last shot of that film is one of the shots in The Last Jedi. It's that closely tied.
Yes.
Strikes a vastly different tone than The Force Awakens.
Correct.
So if you like that tone better, that's great. I think it's understandable for people that sit down and say, all right, that Force Awakens in 2015, let's do it. Let's do episode 8.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of that and you're like, what what was that?
What?
Yeah,
What?
that was something different.
It was. And so some of your criticisms from your post that I agree with is it was very like fourth wall breaky in a kind of a affronting way.
I think one of the things I say in that post, which you can find on my website at hoeglaw.com.
You've already done that part.
I'll try to keep that down to only 3 or 4 more times.
Minorly viral.
Yeah. I think one of the things I did say in that post was that I think one of the things that people got a certain group of people that watched the film that got upset by, and we can talk about kind of what happened over the last 18 days a little bit on the internet, is that there's a certain amount of glee that the new director-writer of The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, seems to take in saying, oh, you were interested in that thing from The Force Awakens? Woo! Yeah,
like there's like a line that Skywalker has that's like, this is not going to go the way you think. And I was just like, that is why on the nose? Mm-hmm. Why so on the nose? Mm-hmm. Just do it.
And they put that in the trailers. They put that on the commercials. And it's like, yeah, we're... And I think some of what The Last Jedi does has that kind of overarching sense of I am an intellectual and I'm going to deconstruct these hero myths that you like so much because these hero myths are silly in reality. And if you want to depend as a military organization on that shot was 1,000,000 to 1 or it's however odd thousands chance to 1 that you're going to make it through this asteroid field, that's a bad policy. And one of the things I said, and one of the things that bothered me about The Last Jedi is you look at that and you say, yeah, well, no kidding. But Star Wars is something different. We're not trying to have Black Hawk Down here or the Hurt Locker. And to kind of dissect it and take it away from, hero myths or Greek mythology or these kind of larger-than-life god figures and say, that thing that they would do, that's stupid. Han would have exploded on that asteroid. That's stupid. Is, okay, well, it's very nice that you think that, and you're not wrong, but that isn't exactly why I paid $18 to sit here for this particular film.
So... I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And there was sort of a flippant dismissal of many of the Star Wars things, but by God, did it need it in some ways. Like, so people are very upset about the fact that Luke Skywalker is this bitter old man.
Yeah.
Well, what did J.J. Abrams do to Luke Skywalker? He took away his great victory, and he's like, and then the Empire's happened again. We have no explanation for this. It just happened.
Right.
And so you spent your entire life, like, doing this thing, and you murdered your dad, and you blew up a bunch of Death Stars, and you got, like...
Just so we're clear, he didn't murder his dad?
Well...
No.
Didn't he?
Don't look at me.
I don't remember.
I'm a Star Wars idiot.
All right, okay. So, no, I'm going to go earn that. I'm going to go earn that titling of Star Wars expert here. So, so Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker.
I've seen this movie.
I know you have. I know the bulk of your listeners have. But the notion is the ghosts of Obi-Wan and Yoda tell him that he's got to go confront Darth Vader. He's got to go kill his father. And he says, I can't kill my father. He's my dad.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, then it's lost if you're not going to do that. And the crux of the third act of that movie is Luke saying, I can feel there's good in him. I'm going to try to save him. I can bring him back to the good side. I have to try.
Yeah.
Because to not do that is not heroic.
Right.
And that's what he tells to Leia when he admits that she's his sister in the Force of Endor. And the whole last bit of that movie is the Emperor tempting him and Luke finally succumbing and coming to blows with Darth Vader, his father. Cutting off his hand in that scene, realizing that they're the same, having this realization. And then the big moment, the Return of the Jedi, the title of the movie, is him throwing away the lightsaber and saying, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, and letting the Emperor do what he will to him. And then the Emperor uses his Force lightning and says, so be it, Jedi.
Did cut off his hand, though.
He did cut off his hand. He did, but that didn't kill him. And then Darth Vader looks and looks and
didn't
looks.
Help.
Yes, he succumbs to temptation in that scene, but that's one of the things that makes it great. And then finally his life view that there was good in him, that the light can overcome the darkness, is reaffirmed.
It's valid.
In his darkest hour, Darth Vader throws the Emperor into the pit.
And that was 40.
Spoiler alert, 1983. and he takes Darth Vader down to Endor,
But that was 35 years ago.
It was 35 years ago. Yeah, there's a time period between. Absolutely.
So I mean, Star Wars was good when it started because it was new and interesting, and I thought the thing about The Force Awakens that sucked
They just did the same thing.
Yeah, and so you have Rian Johnson, who's been presented with this just sort of crap sandwich by J.J. Abrams, where it's like, oh, here's this creepy Snoke guy. What's he? Oh, he's just Palpatine. What do you have to do with that? And I thought a lot of the choices that he had to make in that movie that everybody hated were necessary to set the table for something that was not Return of the Jedi Part 2 in the third movie. So just killing Snoke halfway through unceremoniously, like, okay, that was a stupid character who had no background and was just super powerful for no reason whatsoever. But...
which is odd.
He's dead. And that's the important thing. J.J. Abrams can't be like, all right, here's Palpatine again.
So I wrote this article, and some people have come out on Twitter and various places and called me cynical and negative.
Sure.
And I would argue the opposite in that you say JJ gave him a rough go, and I agree completely. You've got the hero of the galaxy off on an island somewhere while his nephew kills his dad and everybody's in danger, and that's a tough thing to solve. But I think I'm more of an optimist than a cynic there and said, I'm angry at Rian Johnson because I think he could have come up with something better.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. And I think, you've got Luke Skywalker in exile, but he doesn't need to be a non-hero. He doesn't need to be a bitter old man. And I think
How could he not be a bitter old man?
Well, so if you do anything else, now we get into what would Rick like to have done, and Rick wasn't in charge of writing Episode VIII. But
what I'm saying is, like, so he had his great triumph, and then it all went to crap for unexplained reasons.
Right, but that was built in by Rian. See, JJ didn't say anything about anything going to crap other than the fact that he was gone.
No, because the Empire is basically back, but they've got new helmets.
Right, the Empire's back.
So, like, and they've got their Death Star, and they blew up a planet, they blew up the Republic. And it's
right,
like,
they're doing bad stuff.
How are you not just kind of... I mean, I guess you could be Obama and just kind of windsurfing as Trump is president, and that's cool, I guess.
Well, so...
But you want windsurfing Luke Skywalker?
Well, I don't know that we got much better. I think I saw the green milk scene. I think you saw the green milk scene.
That was awesome.
Okay, all right.
I was like, man, I like the fact that it's like, oh, a little slice of life on this weird island where he lives.
A little something different.
I was like,
no, I just think that you can have a Luke Skywalker that absolutely is in exile for some reason, and he's taken himself off the board, and these bad things have happened as a result, but he hasn't lost his heroism. And the real problem I have with the story that's told in Last Jedi, and we talked about spoilers, so here we go, is that his fall is shown as being a direct function of him seeing darkness in Ben Solo, which is Kylo Ren. They're the same person. And him deciding in that moment for an instant, it's described to us, that maybe he should put it down. And he lights his lightsaber, which to me is longer than an instant. That's like walking into a bedroom with a gun and cocking it. It's not just thinking about potentially murdering someone. But for that story to work, you need to have told me a lot of what happened in the last 30 years to get Luke to that place. And that story wasn't told in The Last Jedi. And so I have this completely incongruous...
It's too late to do it in The Last Jedi, though.
Well, then it's not the right story to tell, in my opinion, which is to say, if you're going to have this completely different character, you have to put in the work, or you can't tell that story.
I can't see... Luke Skywalker has just kind of flitted off to the middle of nowhere, the most remote planet in the galaxy, without being a bitter, jaded person who just wants to die alone.
Well, so my concept, and
much like my wife.
To not get.
That's a self-burn, by the way.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
To not get punished for it like I might on the internet, because certainly we're in a friendly room here. We're in a safe space.
For now.
You can come up with ways that Luke tries to save things after Kylo Ren does whatever he does, and Snoke is too big of an issue, and he's afraid of getting his power overtaken, and Luke senses that, and then he has to cut himself off from the Force, go find the First Jedi Temple to find something that can combat the evil that is the First Order. And so there's a reason that is still heroic, that is still protagonist-like, that he's going and doing something on the island, and that's spitballing. Okay, I don't pretend to be a screenwriter.
Isn't like the Jedi tradition just kind of losing and then screwing off on some remote planet? Ben Kenobi did it. Yoda did it. And Luke is just following in the tradition of the series.
So Ben Kenobi, you see Ben at the end of Revenge of the Sith goes and is looking after Luke, because they think Luke is the new hope, and he's gonna save the Republic at some point. And Yoda goes away because he lost in a straight-up fight with Palpatine. So they're essentially biding their time. And you don't get that sense from Luke. As a matter of fact, in Last Jedi, Luke says he came to this island to die.
Right.
And that doesn't jive with me for a couple of reasons, but one of which is in The Force Awakens, Han and some other folks tell them that the map is to the first Jedi Temple, that they think Luke went there for some reason that they don't understand. And they do find that it is the first Jedi Temple when they arrive at the island. But this is one of those places, and I do mention this in my article, which you can really feel that Disney didn't put together an overarching plot for the trilogy.
The trilogy, yeah.
7, 8, and 9. And
well,
you can feel
that it was just the first trilogy, except Rian Johnson decided to change it.
Well, it's possible.
Boom.
It's possible. But I would say that JJ's always been better at setting up mysteries and not answering them and then coming up with something later, hopefully, and then sometimes you wind up with something good and sometimes you wind up with Lost. But in this particular case, Rian Johnson appeared to want to do something completely different than what J.J. Abrams wanted to do. And so you've got a movie where it doesn't really make sense that Luke had a map at all that led to him, that he went to the Jedi Temple at all. It seems like he could have gone to anywhere and gone and died. He didn't need to go to this particular place.
Well, sometimes you just want to sit in the disaster of your own making and languish hopelessly.
But I can't help but feel these are self-referential here.
Well, you know,
it's been
that
kind
kind
of
weekend.
bowl game leaking over into the Star Wars conversation.
So Brian is Luke
one
Skywalker.
win over Ohio State, people. One win. And that was a Luke Fickle game.
Luke bringing it around.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, the water boy himself. But when I look at those movies together, they don't work together. And I think that that's something that can work for people that didn't like The Force Awakens.
Check.
Or that didn't otherwise potentially like the original trilogy as much as some folks did. Like myself.
I like the original trilogy. It's just you need to tell a different story.
Okay, and I'm all about telling a different story. And I think you can get to a place where you have a Luke Skywalker that is roughly as he's depicted in The Last Jedi, but I don't think they did the homework. They didn't dot the I's and cross the T's. Now, you can also tell me they didn't do the homework on anything. JJ never bothered to world build any of this, what the Resistance is, what the Republic is.
Snoke just comes out of nowhere.
Snoke comes out of nowhere. What is a First Order? What is a Second Order? What does it have to do with the Empire? And I think that's a big and valid complaint about this trilogy is one of the reasons it feels so hollow is that they're just not interested in talking about the details of what it is we're fighting about.
I know for me as somebody who's not like,
I
can't rip off the names of characters off the top of my head like you guys can, but like I've watched all the movies.
Sure.
Like like that was my biggest problem with this trilogy so far is that as a more casual fan, I have no idea what the hell is going on most of the time.
Yeah.
Like
I
know what they're trying to do, but like I know the general like who's on what side.
Sure.
But into like Snoke, like who the hell is that?
Nobody knows though. That's nobody knows.
But that's like
they abandoned it.
So
Absolutely.
I think I enjoyed it in large part because I wasn't as deep of a fan, so I didn't care as much about some of the incongruous stuff between movies.
So, I'm kind of between you two guys, I guess. Like, I'm not...
Yeah, because I'm exceptionally casual.
Exceptionally.
Yeah.
Wearing a hat indoors.
It's cold, man.
Not indoors!
It's true. It's actually kind of warm in here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I also thought that movie could have been about 45 minutes shorter.
Yeah, we can talk about that, too.
I wanted them to just cut the whole casino scene.
Well, the casino scene actually ends up critical in the movie because they end up getting this guy back.
But it was like a 45-minute excursion.
I'm just going to call him Fenster because he's Fenster.
It was a 45-minute excursion to pick up one character who betrays them like almost immediately.
Oh, Benicio.
It seems like they could have done that in a lot less time, and then you're not sitting in the theater for 2.5 hours.
I think you can have that whole plot without that planet at all. Why does that even exist? What is the code breaker?
It also was like a really ham-handed like classism thing, and
that was very ham-handed.
Very on the nose. Yeah, at the end
there was that, and then the guy Finn gets rescued by Rose is her name, I think.
The we don't fight what we hate.
Right. Yeah. And there was like some cheesy Star Wars lines, but I like. Accept that going
that is
into a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't mind cheesy lines. But yeah, I think on the nose, the lack of subtlety there.
So I think the casino planet was important because it's like, okay, the Resistance is still like, okay, people hate these First Empire jabronis. And so the kids are like, oh, let's help these people. And then, so I think that was important. I liked the casino scenes. I thought they were... At least they were visually interesting. They weren't, and you couldn't have a movie where just everything is stuck on a ship. I think.
That's fair. I just think it was overlong and blunt in a way that was not.
It was very like, I'm going to hit you with this large mallet with the word that it was like a.
It was a gold encrusted mallet.
It was it was a political cartoon of a scene.
Yeah.
Where
now it was all worth it. Isn't that what she says right at the end when they free the horse alien? It's very, very anti-horse racing track treatment of horses, I think.
Well, there are better ways to treat horses who you're racing on a track.
Certainly.
I imagine.
An interesting strain, though. I mean, the other part of the casino scene, though, is they've been given that's a timer-based scene, right? So the plot dictates that they have, 18 hours.
Yeah.
And they come back, they come in and they're like chilling at the casino and having adventures. And they can't.
The scene's moving on at like a pretty leisurely pace.
I don't think they were chilling at the casino. They were like.
They did not have a sense of urgency when they arrived.
Well, it did not feel like they were rushing through everything.
I thought they were. They were looking for the dude with the thing, and then they got arrested for a parking violation, which some people hated, but I loved, because that is exactly the kind of plan that would be like, you parked in the wrong place, go to jail.
Well, they crashed it into the beach.
I did find that funny.
No, I think that worked. That's fine. But that whole plot is so weird, because they go to get the one guy that the CGI phone call to the little non-Yoda lady.
Yodette
tells them that they have to go find, and then they say, oh, this is the only person that can help us. And then Benizio's just in their cell, and it's like, no, I can help you. It's like, what is even happening here in terms of the plot?
When they made a stupid decision, and then they came back to bite them, and that doesn't really happen in these movies. I just wish there was a little bit of variance. So stupid decision that came back to bite you because you were reckless. Stupid decision that came back to bite you because you were reckless. It was a little much.
Right, and they do that same plot line. They're teaching that same lesson across Finn and Rose and Poe as he deals with the mutiny.
Right.
Because Ellie Sattler won't tell him what her plan is with respect to the ship.
You should not use the Jurassic Park name that nobody else knows.
Ellie Sattler? Laura
Dern.
Somebody listening to this podcast knows who I mean when I talk about purple-haired Ellie Sattler.
Baron Davis's current boo, I believe, is the
there we
go.
We got to get the athletics references.
It's good. We're getting the TMZ crowd in.
We're
going to be big on Tumblr.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big on Tumblr. If you're asking me what my overarching reaction to this movie was, it was thank God.
It was positive.
And I think the Luke storyline does resolve itself into like a fairly traditional heroic Star Wars exit, where he's like, I'm just going to astrally project myself across light years, and that's going to be really badass. And it was, and it worked.
Yeah.
Well, so, yeah, I think there's a part in Act 3 where they've spent The Last Jedi's 2 hours and 40-some-odd minutes talking about how legends aren't real and how we need to learn from failure, and the best way to learn from failure is to have our A, B, C, and D plots all result in failure. That when we finally have all our chips down, actually, we're going to do this enormously risky thing. It's going to work out, and legends are real, and isn't that great? Resistance ho. And I think there's a notion
I don't think it's quite that.
Well, I can only speak to how it comes across to me, which is to say the structure of the movie is such that it feels to me that they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have this rousing Star Wars finish. They didn't earn it in the plotting, to me, in my opinion. And then you get to the point where every lesson that they've tried to convey, ham-handedly or not, is then, at least in some ways, undercut by this rousing Star Wars finale that they also want to have.
I mean, is it that rousing of a victory when you're like running out the back of a mountain to escape? I mean, like it's, it was a victory in the moment for them, but that's not like establishing their dominance.
There are a couple moments where the characters seem to like learn. So Poe is like, Rose is like, let's not annihilate ourselves pointlessly in this big object thing, the Death Star, except it's a tank or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a weird one.
And then at the end, Poe is not like, all right, let's go charge in and like shoot him with our blasty beams, but like, let's leave.
Yep.
Let's GTFO. Let's learn something from what we've done. So I do feel like that some of the plot points resolved in a really satisfying way. And I really enjoyed the weird interactions between Rey and Kylo.
FaceTime?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like, hey, what's going on? and the Snoke scene was both really interesting from a visual perspective, and also it moved the plot along in a very interesting way.
Yeah, that set is crazy. Rian Johnson, I have a lot of complaints about that movie, but he's a great director. I have a lot of questions about his writing. I don't know that he's a great writer, but he's a great director. And that's one of the reasons I think that a lot of what he does comes across so well. I think The Last Jedi is as I accuse it of being, very much interested in subverting your expectations to the detriment of what I would call a cohesive story. But in the moment, he's good at subverting those expectations in a way that is aesthetically enjoyable at the time. And so I have no problem with Rian Johnson directing. I would just hope that he gets a writing buddy for the next 800 Star Wars movies they're ready to give him.
Well, I'll volunteer for that.
You're going to write for him?
Sure, why not?
All right, let's do it. We'll submit together. We'll be yin and yang.
We're probably more like yang and yang, if we're going to be honest.
All right. Well, you like his previous work a lot more than I do.
Well, he directed Fly, the crazy bottle episode of Breaking Bad, which is awesome.
Now, you're in favor of Fly?
Oh, yeah.
I also love Fly, but that's a divisive episode of Breaking Bad.
What's a bottle episode? Like,
there are people who don't like that episode?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Well, I mean, you can argue that nothing happens.
How are people so wrong about things?
I mean, the first time I watched it, I'm like, I feel like I just watched like a play. Like I felt like I had.
I mean, it was obviously like a massive departure from Breaking Bad, but it was enormously fun.
And then he also directed
Yeah.
Ozymandias.
He did.
Which is, yeah.
See, but that's a perfect example of all the legwork in the writing is done for him.
Yeah,
all of the plot lines have come together for him for that episode.
That was very well constructed.
I would like to put in a shout for how gorgeous the movie was.
Gorgeous.
Like the salt fight.
Yeah.
And then the zoom out after the incredibly destructive hyperspace jump suicide.
By the way,
shockingly gorgeous.
I got so upset in the theater during that because that was shockingly gorgeous, and the sound cutting out was an amazing effect. And then some yobs in the theater were clapping during the silence, and it was like, you ruined it. You ruined this. We were in the theater. It wasn't even opening weekend.
Yeah,
the week after.
Did you see the posters that some of the AMC theaters are putting up that says something along the lines of, at 1 hour and 54 minutes and 60 seconds,
Don't say anything.
The sound does cut out for 11 seconds. Yeah. This is not an error with our theater.
No. No.
It's good stuff.
I wish they put up a sign that said, don't freaking clap at that point.
We'll be tased like robots.
I actually appreciate it because someone in the theater gasped.
See, that's cool. But clapping, it's just you're ruining the effect, which is silence.
Yeah. She was just taken aback. And I was like,
we had a very clappy theater for some reason.
It has some high points. It does. And he's a great director. I just don't think the plot holds together. And I think
Porgs, yes or no, though.
Oh, I'm all in favor of porgs.
Okay,
yeah, I'm fine with them.
But in fairness, I have an 8-year-old daughter whose favorite animal on the planet Earth is the penguin. I have more stuffed penguins than probably most toy stores, especially now after certain bankruptcies. But porgs are so penguin-like that they're already a fan favorite, and she hasn't seen the film yet.
Sure. I mean, they were on the screen for a minute, and they didn't destroy the Empire. So.
And there was that one Queen tweet. The
Queen tweet.
The porgs doing.
Oh yes.
Yeah. There's a tweet.
There's a Bohemian Rhapsody tweet.
It's a very good viral tweet.
It's a very good viral tweet. Yes, I think I retweeted it.
So if for no other reason than it led to that, I'm for the porgs.
Also, my only complaint about the porgs is I kind of wish that Chewbacca had offered porg to the other porg. He didn't. I don't want the porg to eat it, but just you hungry?
So I have a lot of complaints about the jokes and the humor in that movie, but I think that scene where he's got the porg on the spit and the porgs are all just looking at him is classic Star Wars and absolutely great.
Yeah, when they're trying to just do visual humor like that instead of kind of more forced
Verizon ads
dialogue, that stuff works well.
I mean, I enjoyed the lizard nuns as well, just kind of clucking.
Yeah.
They were being very upset.
The Dark Crystal cast-off nuns? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the other visual thing that I wanted to bring up was the mirror scene, which I thought was beautifully done. And the fact that they just dumped the who are Rey's parents things, thank God.
I got no problem with that. That's one of those things that people complain about.
Yeah.
And I don't have any issue with Rey not being a Skywalker or a Kenobi or a Palpatine or whatever else the internet was cooking up.
Right.
But I also don't think... It's one of the things Rian Johnson's getting a lot of credit for, that, the Force is for everybody now, and it's not just the Skywalker lineage. I am a Star Wars fan. I'm not what did Ace call himself? An exceptional casual?
A casual.
But it's one of those things where I've never gotten the impression that that's anything but the case. Does anybody think Yoda is a Skywalker? I mean, the Jedi have always come from all walks, and so it doesn't really come as a, wow, this is a universe-breaking, brand-new paradigm for Star Wars. I just don't see it that way.
Well, Kylo Ren being like the Solo kid is kind of like moving in that direction. And, of course, the Skywalker sister being Force-enabled.
Yeah, the Force is strong with us as a family. Has always been something, but it doesn't mean that Obi-Wan Kenobi came. We don't have any idea where he came from.
I know, it's just that's like a minefield avoided.
Yeah, no, I don't think she should be related. I agree with you completely. Yeah. And I don't have any problem with that revelation at all. I just didn't find it to be as series-shattering and cataclysmically awesome as some folks did, because I just didn't see it that way to begin with. But
well, you have to realize that going into this movie, my expectations were very low.
Because of your dislike for The Force Awakens?
I thought it would be a shot-for-shot remake of Empire Strikes Back.
I tell you what, after the trailers, that was my big concern as well, because they had the big AT-AT type things, and you could see that she was training a bit with Luke, and it's like, okay, did you guys just make Empire Strikes Back? And in some ways, they built it in reverse. It's very similar in structure to Empire, except backwards. Mm-hmm. But no, it's a different movie. I mean, Empire is vastly better, but you take what you can get in 2017. Oh, come on.
I mean, probably. I wouldn't say.
So which one are you more likely to rewatch?
Well, I've seen Empire so many times that there's no point in rewatching it.
So here's what I'll say about the main reason I think Empire is a better movie is that you've got your three main characters in Empire, and they didn't split them up into three plots. They kept Han and Leia together, and that allowed the burgeoning kind of romance plot line to take hold through the asteroid chase and onto Cloud City. And by separating into Poe and Holdo and Finn and Rose and Rey and Kylo/Luke, you really prevented your main characters from building kind of the bonds or rapport that you would expect from a trilogy. And I don't feel like those three in particular, I know anything more about their relationship or how they react to each other or how they're going to lead into Episode 9 than I did at the end of Episode 7.
Well, they spent a lot of that time on Rey and Kylo, and I think that's a more interesting choice. Because really, I mean, Poe, who cares about Poe? Like, he could die in a Skywalker explosion at the factory, and nobody would care.
But so to me, you're building in what you saw in Last Jedi, and so Poe was a cipher, just like the rest of them were really ciphers at the end of Force Awakens, and you're building in that you watch this 2.5-hour movie, and Poe didn't advance. Poe is dumb. I don't want to follow Poe. I don't think Finn advanced. Finn is dumb. I don't really want to follow Finn. I don't think Rey did a whole lot in The Last Jedi.
I gotta disagree with that.
With Rey?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rey starts out Force Awakens. She starts out Last Jedi. She wants to get trained by Luke and help Luke save the Resistance. She gets turned down by Luke. She goes and visits Kylo Rey. She says, I'm going to turn Kylo Rey. Kylo Rey says, maybe I'll turn
Kylo Ren. Kylo Rey is like they're now dating.
It's too much
You're
Tumblr.
Shipping them.
It's too much Tumblr.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
I'm sorry.
You're shipping the two main characters from Star Wars.
I'm sure there's a combination of their two names that is online somewhere that is very cute. I apologize.
That's what it is. It's Kylo Rey.
It's Kylo Rey.
You're shipping them.
Well, I've been outed. You caught me, Brian. But no, so Kylo Ren, she goes off to fight Kylo Ren. They have this fight, and nothing changes, right? So at the end of the second act of The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren doubles down, Rey doubles down, but there's no kind of notions about why either one is acting the way they are. It's, again, that hollowness that we talk about with respect to the world building.
I think that there's a choice that's being made there, though.
Okay, but what's motivating that choice, other than I'm light and I'm dark?
Well, I mean, the guy's already murdered his father, so he's pretty much in there.
That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
And I think the moment where she's like, please don't do this is character building moment for both of them, and I think it was probably the most compelling moment of the movie.
Yeah, it's the best arc of the movie. There's no question.
Yeah.
No question.
I mean, there's definitely some fat that could be cut, and some things that could be improved, and things that I would have done differently.
There you go.
Because God damn it, I'm amazing.
There you go. No, you get to that end, you get to the end of that movie, and my biggest complaint is that I feel like we're at the same place that we were roughly at the end of Force Awakens.
Yes,
they're on the run.
Many stupid things have been done away with.
Because you don't want to deal with Snoke, and you don't want to deal with Rey Skywalker.
Right.
And that's fair.
And now you've set it up so the third movie might actually be, like, good.
But to cut back to, like, the middle of our conversation, people accuse me of being cynical on this. I view it as having more faith in Rian Johnson's ability to come up with something more compelling than what he showed me for 2.5 hours. I don't mind you getting rid of Snoke. I don't mind Rey being non-Skywalker. I don't mind bitter Luke. But you got to tell me that story.
You mind bitter Luke.
No, you got to tell me that story. I would prefer he wasn't bitter Luke. That would not be what I did.
That story tells itself.
I don't think it does.
Everything I did in this world was worth nothing.
Also, he's kind of been a little whiny the whole time.
That's true.
Well, look,
I don't want to go get the converters at Tashi Power Station.
It did not strike me as out of character for Luke that he wound up just like
impulsive,
on an island,
runs off from Yoda,
as hell,
unprepared.
This is all because he couldn't get his power
It's all part of his character.
Yeah, well, look,
he's always been a little bit of a.
I don't want or need Luke Skywalker to be a perfect human being.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm okay with him being where he is in Last Jedi, but I think that you needed to tell me more of what happened in the intervening time period to get him from the end of Return of the Jedi, where he is at peace with himself and he's not really eager to get back to Tashi Station at that point in time.
Yeah.
And he has returned the Jedi, and then some stuff happens over the intervening 30 years. But what we get is...
Don't they get into that, though, with the...
No, we get 3 weird Rashomon flashbacks of crazy CGI de-aged Mark Hamill looking crazy in a cabin tent.
Well, one of them he looks crazy. The one
he looks mostly crazy. Well, that's just the CGI talking. He looks pretty bad in all those CGI de-aging.
That's not... Well, so I think that, they do explain kind of the last crowning failure in a lifetime of failures for Luke Skywalker.
Well, and that might be the case. I don't think they did a good enough job. I am fully willing to acknowledge that reasonable minds can differ on that.
Peaked in high school.
He did peak. How old is Luke in Return of the Jedi? Like 23. I mean, that was it. I threw 4 touchdowns.
Al Bundy of Star Wars.
God damn it! I took down a galactic empire. But no, I can see that.
I would watch a sitcom with Luke Skywalker and then just the rest of the cast of Married with Children. I would watch the hell out of that.
Brian, if we live long enough, I have a feeling Disney's got everything on the table. It'll be called The Skywalkers. It'll be a great time.
Oh, man. All right, well, I guess a reasonable minds will have to agree to disagree.
Hey, and that's absolutely fine. One of the reasons I love Star Wars is I think you can have fun, good conversations about it without always dropping directly into ad hominem attacks or comparisons to Hitler.
Did we do that?
No.
Well,
no.
Not even once, but...
I tell you, my experience on Twitter is a lot different than my experience on this podcast. So, I'm an old fogey here.
Does someone call you Hitler?
People have accused my good faith and inability to like anything in my life because I dislike The Last Jedi. So,
well, you have just a small taste of what Twitter is like for the two.
This is what I'm saying. You guys are in that all the time. I don't know that I could take it. I will go back to writing venture capital documents now. But yeah, it's been fun. I love Star Wars. I love science fiction, and yeah, I wish it did more for me. I would love nothing more for it to be my favorite movie of the year, but unfortunately that's not where I left it.
All right. I'm more excited about Episode 9 than I was going in, and that's why I thought I liked the movie.
All right.
Ace, your bottom line.
I thought it was 45 minutes too long, and that's why it was good instead of great.
All right. How we just did like a 45-minute segment on Star Wars.
Yep.
We could have just watched the casino scenes. Made Ace really happy.